Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Conversations with Kevin. I'm your host, Assembly Member Kevin Mullins. So very proud to represent the 22nd Assembly District here in San Mateo County and serve as Speaker Pro Tem of the California State Assembly. We have an excellent conversations with Kevin for you tonight, and timely given that we have the holidays coming up. It's great to see everyone virtually. Thank you all for tuning in. Tonight, we will be talking about an issue that is unfortunately oftentimes out of sight, out of mind, and that is food insecurity. As we all know, San Mateo County is an extremely expensive place to live. The pandemic has only exacerbated these challenges, and the need for services has never been greater. It often goes unnoticed because you don't see it in the same way that you would with, say, homelessness, but food insecurity is there. Hunger and food insecurity is a real challenge for many in our communities. The face of food insecurity has changed, and it impacts kids, college students, working families, and seniors alike. As we enter the holiday season, I thought this would be a timely topic to bring forward. The hope here tonight is to bring attention to this important issue and hear from various service providers in our county about what they are doing and how we as a community can help and support their efforts. Before I introduce this panel, if you have a question as you're watching tonight and you're watching it live, you can type it into the comment box and we'll do our best to address as many questions as possible within our fairly limited time frame. So a few introductions tonight. I am pleased and honored to be joined by Bart Charlo. Many of you know Bart. He is the CEO of Samaritan House, which plays such a crucial role, especially at this time of the year. Tracy Weatherby, she is the Vice President of Strategy and Advocacy for Second Harvest of Silicon Valley. And Deanna Abrahamian, Director of Economic Self-Sufficiency with the San Mateo County Human Services Agency. And since I brought up HSA, a quick shout out to Brian Kingston, my former business partner, who works directly with Deanna at Human Services. And they do such great work down there in Belmont and throughout the county. A warm welcome to all of our panelists. Thank you all for taking the time to shine a light on this issue. And with that, I think we're going to sort of set the foundation here. I'm going to turn it over to Bart. Bart, I believe you have a presentation for us just to kind of capture the essence of the issue here, and then we'll talk about how your different respective agencies are dealing with it. So Bart, let me toss it to you.
Well, thank you, Kevin. I will spare everybody the PowerPoints. You just stuck with me. But I'm happy to be here on a panel with a couple of my colleagues who I really admire, Tracy and Deanna. And together we really represent a set of networks that are bound together to try and make sure that people get the resources they need to live here in our very expensive county, as you said. So we're going to talk about food insecurity tonight. And I'm going to say something very challenging to all of you, and that's this: that I believe that it's criminal that anyone in America is ever food insecure. And I can say that pretty bald-faced because food insecurity in the United States is not like hunger elsewhere in the world. In the rest of the world, it's a supply problem. There just isn't enough food to feed people. But in the United States, we don't have a supply problem. We have an overabundance problem. We waste about 40% of the food that we grow, and we even pay farmers not to grow more of it. So our hunger problem here really is a matter of the inequality of the way we distribute it. In other words, there are a lot of people who, everybody's got to eat, but there are a lot of people who can't get enough to eat, or can't get the right food to eat, or don't know how or when they're going to next be able to get enough to eat. And that's what food insecurity is about. And we know that food insecurity from research is debilitating, not just at the moment, but if it goes on for any length of time, it creates not just mental health issues, but also physical health issues. So it's a very serious business. Now, at Samaritan House, we look at food as a support to people three ways. First of all, we're feeding them, okay? They're getting nutrition in their body. Secondly, it gives people hope. They're no longer as frightened when they know that they can get a meal soon, and it will be a meal that will satisfy them. And third, it's also an income support, and a very important income support, because food is not cheap and it's certainly getting more expensive as we go along. So let me back up for a second and give you a little grounding in what Samaritan House does. We're your central anti-poverty agency for San Mateo County, and we work with people who are the working poor or seniors, folks who are low income and struggling, and we provide everything they need to survive and thrive. So that's food for sure, shelter, clothing, healthcare, financial assistance and empowerment, and a whole lot of other services to help people get along in the county. And one of the biggest we do is food. We're very happy to do food. It's a lovely thing to be able to do for people, but it's also crucial. So we had 12 different ways of distributing food before COVID, and we've had to change a lot of them, as have all of us working in food, for precaution's sake, to make sure we didn't get people sick. And that's about the last thing you want to happen. You want to keep them healthy. So let me give you an idea what happened. We distribute both hot and cold food in many ways throughout the county, including in our innovative food pharmacies, which is a partnership with Second Harvest, in our clinics. And before COVID, we had hit a record 1,400,000 meals. During COVID, it went to 3 million meals in a year, okay? More than doubled. And this is not uncommon, even in our high rent district. Most of those people coming to us were coming to us for the first time. And as Kevin mentioned earlier, these are folks who were working before, they had an income before, and all of a sudden the bottom fell out from them and they had to ask for help for the first time. And do not ever minimize how difficult it is to ask for help, especially the first time, and you don't know where to turn. So it's been a big thing to be able to provide that much food for people. We were kind of hopeful earlier in the summer when we saw some of that drop from the peak, about 10% or so, and we thought, okay, things are getting better. But since the end of the eviction moratorium at the end of September, it's going right back up again. Part of that is due to the fact that people are still unemployed or underemployed. A part of it is due to the fact that you read the paper this morning, or if you've been in a grocery store this week, you know that the price of food has risen at least 12%. And depending upon what you're buying, it can be considerably more than that. So people are really in trouble. Now we look at food as a leading indicator of many other things, because people think that if they don't have enough money to pay the rent and medicine and clothes for the kids and diapers and whatever else they've got to pay, they can skimp on food. It doesn't work. You certainly can't get away with it for very long. And so what happens is they first come in to tell us they're having problems looking for food. But we know there's a lot more behind it because they can't pay the rent either. And if you think that was a big jump in doubling the amount of food demand we had, you have no idea how much financial assistance people have been asking for in terms of primarily being able to stay housed. It went up 5 times normal and has stayed that high. So throughout San Mateo County, we are dealing with a situation where every day we get as many requests for rental assistance as we used to get in an entire week. This is serious. You know, you got to keep people housed. You don't want them on the street. A lot of need out there, but we're very proud of our partnerships with Second Harvest and with the county in terms of the many ways that we can put food resources together and get people fed. There is food. That's the message. No one should be going hungry here. Now I want to talk about where people can go for assistance, because Kevin asked me this question. A lot of folks don't know. So wherever you are in San Mateo County, there's a core service agency that is, there for you. In about half the county, from Millbrae to San Carlos, and again in Menlo Park and East Palo Alto, your core agency is Samaritan House. So you'd come to us. If you're in Redwood City, it's Fair Oaks Community Center. If you're north on the Bay, it's the YMCA. In Daly City, it's Daly City Partnership. In Pacifica, it's Pacifica Resource Center. From Montara down through about San Gregorio, it's Coastside Hope. And below that on the coast, it's El Puente. And all of us together will help people get through whatever we can to get them assistance to stay housed, to stay clothed, to stay fed, to stay healthy. These are our charge, and we will do it. And we'll help them apply for financial assistance elsewhere as well. That assistance is available. And I want to make sure that people know there's a lot of assistance that's available. And one of the things that I'm hoping that Tracy's going to tell you in a few minutes is how you can access the Second Harvest website and find out where food resources are all over the place. So There's rent assistance available. There's health assistance available. There is food. And that's my thing. And that is, you can help. You can be a part of this. If you want to volunteer, I know Second Harvest has needed volunteers. Samaritan House needs volunteers. Many agencies need volunteers who can help us package food, get food out, and do all the other things we need to support people. If there's a food drive you're willing to do or you're here about, I think it's really important that you check on our websites and find out what is the kind of food we most need. After all, it's important we get the right kind of nutrition into people. And last but certainly not least, if you've got financial means, donate so that those fungible funds make it possible for us to really leverage all of these resources and get as much food as possible as people need it. I'm excited that we will be again on Thanksgiving Day. Samaritan House will be delivering individually packaged meals over at the Martin Luther King Center as people drive up. It's fun to be able to make sure people have a nice, hot, warm Thanksgiving dinner. The same way, basically, we're doing all year for so many people in so many new ways. But my message to you is really very straightforward. Do not allow anyone you know or meet to be hungry. We can help, and we will with your help. So, Kevin, it's to you.
Thank you for that overview, Bart. And that is an important message, and we'll be hammering that message home throughout our program tonight. There is no reason somebody should be hungry in San Mateo County. The resources are here. So I was actually blown away by that figure, though, Bart, about the 3 million meals. So Tracy, I want to bring you in, Tracy Weatherby, Second Harvest, maybe talk a little bit about, from your perspective, the partnership with Bart, just what you have seen in this pandemic. It has really sort of exacerbated the challenges, that the pre-existing challenges for people from a financial standpoint. And Bart mentioned the rental assistance piece, but talk about your work, Tracy, the good work of Second Harvest, one of the anchor nonprofits in our county, doing work over these generations. So talk about just how acute the challenges are now and what we can do about it. So Tracy, let's bring you in, Tracy Weatherby.
Hey, thank you so much for having us. Bart has it exactly right. And part of what really makes this community strong is all of these partnerships. And Second Harvest of Silicon Valley actually serves as kind of a wholesaler of charitable food. So we work with over 300 nonprofit partners, some of them very large and, offering other services like Samaritan House and others that are much smaller, to distribute food at over 1,000 locations. And what we found is when the pandemic hit, pretty much overnight, we were serving double the number of people. So for the entire last year, we ended up serving 500,000 people every single month, rather than about 250,000. We've seen a very slight decline in that, but we don't actually, expect that to really ever go back to the 250,000, because the root cause of what's going on here is that it is very expensive to live here. And prior to the pandemic, we had really been struggling to get the word out to people about the food that we could provide, the healthy food. And I am gonna subject you to a little bit of PowerPoint. But what I think happened in the pandemic is a lot of people who probably needed our services before found us, discovered that, it's 50% fresh produce, it's great quality food, it can help people stay housed because it alleviates budgets. And so we are really trying to plan to continue to serve that need. And I just wanted to share a couple of statistics for you. This is what has happened to the amount of food we've provided over the last 3 years. It's essentially doubled both the amount of food and the people that we've served. And, we distributed 140 million pounds of food last year into Santa Clara and San Mateo counties. So, that's over 110 million meals equivalent. We've done some research with our clients. We now have a lot of our clients signed up in ways that we have their cell phone numbers, and we can do quick text surveys and get a sense of how they're doing. At the beginning of the pandemic, over 50% of the clients that came to us had never received food assistance before. And when we did a survey in September, we found that nearly half the people who responded were unsure that they'd be able to pay their rent. 60% reported that they had less than $100 in savings. It's hard to even call that savings, right? You are not even a small grocery bill away from being completely broke. And 56% of them said that the pandemic really worsened their financial situation. So, as I mentioned, we think that, as Bart said, it takes a tremendous amount for people to reach out for help. There's a lot of shame, there's a lot of stigma. And now that people have found the services and hopefully found them welcoming, and we are expecting that we need to continue to meet that need. We have had to build a lot of extra capacity. We are now operating across 4 warehouses, one that we had to rent at the beginning of the pandemic, and we're working on long-term plans to figure out how to consolidate these operations. We're really grateful to the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors and a lot of other partners for helping us provide money for food that we could get out to the community through our partners. And we've benefited from a tremendous amount of labor. First, the National Guard. We had 140 National Guard helping us pack up at the beginning of the pandemic. And we're now at about 100 San Jose Conservation Corps that are also helping us box. But in addition to that, we're back to all our volunteer numbers plus more. So as Bart said, if you are looking for a good volunteer experience, either a one-off or an ongoing commitment to a community, on our website, you can sign up for volunteering in our warehouses or out in the community at some of our distributions. As I mentioned before, over 50% of what we provide is fresh produce. We also make sure people have the key staples, some meat, milk, eggs, tortillas, and then we try and provide some variety through a lot of our food rescue. One of the challenges we're having now is that as the economy reopens, we've had some very large drive-thrus that we had to start right at the beginning of the pandemic. Some of those drive-thrus were serving 1,000 families at a time. And some of those locations are now going back to being a full-time shopping center or being a full-time high school. So we're doing a lot of reworking of our sites to ensure that we still have the right coverage for our neighbors who are in need. So this is kind of our challenge, is trying to figure out how to keep this whole system running. And it is partners like Samaritan House that really are central to that. We also started during the pandemic a home delivery service because, especially with COVID, people who were elderly or not in good health really didn't feel safe even coming to our distributions. And so in San Mateo County, we now do over 1,500 home deliveries of groceries every twice a month is when we deliver. And we also worked with the county to take some of the folks who had been getting great plates but had an ability to cook to be able to start giving them some groceries. I'm not going to touch on this much because I know Deanna's on the call and she is the CalFresh expert extraordinaire, but we work very closely with the county, and we have a large staff that is multilingual that tries to sign people up for CalFresh because there are benefits available to a lot of people, and we want to make sure that they have access to them. So we have many different languages represented with our own staff, and then we also have a translation service. We have promotores, and we work really hard on social media and a lot of other places to get the word out about this important, grocery benefit that is available to low-income people. And the other thing I want to just make a plug for, because this is something else that's new since the pandemic, is our nutrition center has been significantly up-leveled. And we're trying to do a couple of different things. One is to be much more cognizant of the cultures we're serving and making sure that people both can get recipes that relate to the food we're providing, but that also relate to their cultures and allow them to integrate all this healthy food in a way that is comfortable and enticing for their families. So those are some of the things we've been doing during the pandemic. If you are interested in volunteering or donating, SHFB is our website, shfb.org. And we can always use the funds. And We are actually this year encouraging people to do virtual food drives rather than actual food drives, because we're able to really make a dollar go really far. Our food sourcing department does a really great job, and we can help provide 2 meals for $1. So the funds are always going to go a little further than the food. So we are encouraging that more this year. Thank you very much, Assemblyman Mullen. I'm happy to take any questions or let Deanna speak and then take questions.
That's great. I am going to bring Deanna in just a second, Tracy, but I'm just curious. During the pandemic, there were so many sort of a variety of food drives, drive-through food giveaways. There was a real, maybe grassroots is the wrong word, but it seemed like there were food efforts sort of springing up across the county. To what extent was Second Harvest in any kind of coordinating role there? And I'm just wondering about those people that did the drive-throughs. Are we sort of, was there an effort to try to get the word out to those folks that, yes, these are sort of one-off efforts, but on an ongoing basis, there are opportunities to address food issues through Second Harvest in more of an ongoing way as opposed to the one-offs?
Yeah, we tried to do we stood up 130 drive-throughs during the pandemic, but we tried to make sure that none of those were one-offs, that they would go on for months and months. And even now, as we're having to transition some of them, we try and communicate with the clients about, okay, your new site is here, and here are a couple of options for you as to what you can do. So I would guess that the majority of those distributions that you saw were probably supplied by us, Saramonte Shopping Center, Jefferson High School, Daly City Partnership. I think you were also doing drive-throughs, Bart. And so there was that. There was, for a period of time, a federal program that provided boxed food, and some of that food got distributed in that kind of one-off way. But that program no longer exists. And so we're trying to ensure that anyone who was taking advantage of food somewhere else can get connected to one of ours or our partners' distributions.
Yeah.
And I would recommend people going to their site to find out the many places that food is available. But you mentioned something else, Kevin, I think is important. Let me give a shout out to a couple of groups that were supplying Samaritan House. First of all, my first shout out is the Second Harvest, the best food bank in the country, because they're our primary partner. They get the good stuff to us all the time. But Hillsborough Helping is an ongoing effort that residents in that particular community put together, and they've been supplying us with food regularly. So it's like an ongoing, constant food drive thing. And the GROW program was little vegetable growers who are providing fresh produce directly to our food pharmacies in our clinic, so that people could have those fresh produce right there.
Yeah. And the labor unions too, just providing volunteer workforce. I know the labor folks were very involved as well, just extraordinary.
Yeah, they helped us set up one of those drive-throughs at SFO and another one, I think, as well. That was very helpful.
Yeah, Julie Lind and the folks with labor. So thank you for that, Tracy. I do want to bring in Deanna Abrahamian. Deanna is the Director of Economic Self-Sufficiency with the San Mateo County Human Services Agency. Deanna, thank you so much for joining us and sharing a little bit of your expertise and your experience here during this extraordinary pandemic, and the good work that our Human Services Agency is doing in coordination and partnership with Bart and Tracy and other nonprofits in the county.
All right, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I will just start out by saying that I've lived in this county for about 3 years now, and before that I had lived in another county, and the collaboration and partnership here is pretty incredible. The resources available in this county to people, and just the energy that this community puts into ensuring that people's needs are met is just pretty amazing. And I feel just so fortunate to live here now and to be working with such great partners. I am going to subject you to PowerPoint. My job here tonight, I believe, is to talk about CalFresh and help people understand that program a little bit better. And so I'm going to share my screen and make sure I have the right one. All right, are you able to see that? Okay, So I serve as director over the Economic Self-Sufficiency, and that's a branch at the Human Services Agency. And I'm here to talk basically about CalFresh and what that program is. It was a program formerly known as food stamps. And Bart mentioned food insecurity. We're all talking about food insecurity, and I just have a statistic to throw out there, and that is that according to the California Association of Food Banks, we've got around 20% of the people in California that experience food insecurity, and that's over 8 million people. And San Mateo County is no exception to that. I think the percentage is slightly lower, but in such a wealthy community, we really do have quite an issue with food insecurity. Poverty and food insecurity go hand in hand, and food insecurity is really linked to health problems like diabetes and dental problems and anemia and even obesity, because people are eating the wrong types of foods. So CalFresh is part of the solution to that. And what is CalFresh for anybody out there watching that doesn't know? It works like cash. It's a benefit where people can go and buy food. And it comes on a card that's like an ATM card. It's called an EBT card. And people can go to pretty much any major place that sells food, like a grocery store, farmer's market, even mom and pop shops. Most of them take the CalFresh benefit, and they can buy whatever foods they need to buy to stay healthy. What it cannot do, it cannot buy things like pet food or household items, cleaners, soap. People can't buy tobacco or alcohol when they use CalFresh. They can't get money back when they use CalFresh. So it's definitely set up just to buy food. How do people get CalFresh? If you need CalFresh, how do you apply? Well, you can go online or call us on the phone or fill out a paper application and mail it in. So it's been really important for us to make sure people have access to apply and get the benefits that they're eligible for. During the pandemic, that became really tough. People couldn't just walk into the office in the same way they used to. People in quarantine, people who have transportation issues, people in fear for their health. We did feel that it was very important to keep our office open, so we never completely closed down. We put some safety measures in place, but we stayed open for a few hours a day to make sure people could get to us if they needed to come to the office. Best way, though, is probably through the phone, and I'll give some information about that moving forward. Eligibility for the program, it's based on income and household size. Generally, a family needs to be below 200% of the poverty level to be eligible. And I didn't click my other video, so I'm behind on the video now. Here you go. So generally, a family needs to be below 200% of the poverty level to be eligible, and how much they're eligible to depends on their income. So this next slide shows those maximum amounts that people can get and some income amounts. So the first column there is a maximum monthly benefit amount. So you can see that like a household of 2, they could qualify up to $459. If you look at the second column, the maximum gross income amounts, that's for most families, but it's pretty low, right? I mean, it's pretty hard to live in the Bay Area off of $2,904, that household of 2 there. If you got a working couple and that's all they bring in and their rent is $2,500, they're really not going to have much money left over for food. There is an exception to that. People who are disabled or over the age of 60, they don't have a maximum gross monthly income, but they do have a net test that they have to pass. And the program rules get to that net test income amount by subtracting things like ongoing medical expenses and household expenses. I won't bring you all too much into the weeds on CalFresh eligibility, but there's definitely income qualifications, and you can see they're pretty low. And then the maximum monthly benefit amount, that's the maximum somebody can get. The program rules allow much less the closer they get to that maximum grossly month income. So somebody might qualify for the program, but they might only qualify for $50. That has definitely changed in the pandemic, and I'm going to go to that now. So what did the pandemic do to CalFresh? Well, it changed the way CalFresh is distributed in the amounts, in that there's an emergency allotment. So, as part of response to COVID, there was the Families vs. Coronavirus Response Act. And part of what that did was allow CalFresh, which is a federal benefit, is known as SNAP, to give everybody the maximum amount. So if you were that household of 1 and you were only getting $50, now you're getting that full $250. And people who were getting the maximum amount, they get an additional $95 on that. So it really did increase the amount of money that was going out into our community for people to buy food. It also definitely, we saw the increased need like everybody else. There was huge amounts of application surge that happened right after the pandemic. And although it settled down, it is back up. We're still seeing an increased need. As of December 2019, we had a little over 19,000 individuals in this county receiving CalFresh, and we now have over 25,000. So that's a program expansion of 32% during this pandemic. And even though it's been said, I'll just point out again too, it's a low income amount. So people, not everybody who needs food is eligible for CalFresh. It definitely fills an important gap and supports our lowest income individuals. But we see many individuals who have food insecurity, who need support, who really can't get it through CalFresh because they just don't qualify. And so that's where great programs like Second Harvest and Samaritan House, where they step up and help people to fill in the other gaps. And so my last slide here, if you have questions, the best way to have them answered is to call the toll-free telephone number that you see up. There is sometimes a wait time. Another way you can get through to us is to email at that questions email box. If it's not an urgent thing, we usually get back to you by the next business day. So that's a great way to get questions answered. And then there's a website that's up here as well. And okay.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Deanna. Just a quick question as you're describing the eligibility parameters of CalFresh. I don't even know if there's any data on this, but do you suspect that there are folks who are eligible for CalFresh, but for whatever reason haven't connected yet with the county or have maybe fallen into eligibility parameters, yet haven't made that connection, or maybe some kind of a stigma attached or something? Is there a population out there that might be eligible that's not receiving the assistance that they are eligible for?
There definitely is, and that's actually one of my favorite questions. So thank you for asking. So we have utilization statistics, and we know in this county that actually underutilization is pretty high. Sometime before the pandemic, we knew that it fell out around 40%. We have specific, and what that means is that people who look to be apparently income eligible, who aren't using our program, that it's as much as 40% of the people who would be eligible who aren't using it. So that's a really high number. Some of that is because they are income eligible, but not eligible by other CalFresh rules. But there are a lot of myths and fears out there around CalFresh. You know, I've been doing this for a long time, and I still hear people tell me rules that are 15 years old. I don't think I'm eligible because I don't have kids. I own my own house, so I must not be eligible. These are false things that I'm saying right now. People may believe that, sometimes people believe it's a pot of money, and if they use CalFresh benefits, somebody else won't get them. You know, sometimes people think they can't own a house, they can't own a retirement account. You know, there's a lot of things out there that are not true. And then there's also, it's a government agency, and there are people who have a fear that it's going to affect their immigration status, and that's not true as well. And so there's a lot of myths and fears around the program, and sometimes people just don't want to deal with the government agency, but it's easier, way easier than it was in times past. You can apply online, you can get an app on your phone. It's pretty easy to submit documentation now. People don't even need to come into our office if they don't want to. They don't have to have an in-person interview. And so we do a lot of work around trying to spread the word. We work with these core agencies and Second Harvest to make sure that they're also spreading the word when people come in, and try to get as many people to know about it as possible. Because I agree with Bart, there's just no reason anybody should be hungry. And to know that there are people out there that are eligible for this and are not getting it is, you know, actually a little heartbreaking when you think about people who have food need and we could help them, and they're not coming to us. We don't like that. So we work pretty hard to try to find everybody. I imagine those statistics would be quite a bit lower now because we've seen that big increase. More people did reach out when they got a little bit more desperate, but they haven't put anything together in the last couple of years for me to get an updated number for you.
Hopefully we can dispel some of those myths here, Deanna. So thank you so much for that presentation. Just a reminder, if you are watching this live on social media, on Facebook or YouTube, you may type your question into the comment box and we'll try to get it answered. If we can't do it live, we'll follow up and make sure we get you the information that you need. So just a few general questions. You know, we I think we still have the most aging county of the most aging population in this county of the 58 counties. So an aging population, many folks are homebound. And Tracy, you mentioned the home delivery piece. If folks are just tuning in, remind folks how they, if they are a homebound senior, for example, how they can access your services.
Well, the best way to access any of our services is probably to give us a call at 800-984-3663. But you can also go to our website and get referrals. Our first, our first desire is to set you up with a nearby distribution where you can be getting that fresh produce, meat, milk, dairy, lots of the basics that people need. But there are people who either can't get out of the house, don't have any transportation, have health challenges. And so that's who our home delivery is for. And we'll talk through with people about whether they are eligible or if someone else could pick up for them, because it is a tough service to provide. But if there isn't someone who can pick up for them, we want to do home delivery to them. And we are figuring out lots of creative ways to get that done. And we will deliver groceries to people who feel like they can cook their own food. There are other programs through Meals on Wheels, for instance, for people who need pre-cooked meals. And Bart, I see you nodding your head, so I'm guessing you know a little bit about that in San Mateo, so I'm going to hand it to you.
Sure. Well, for people who are homebound, for seniors, the county contracts with Meals on Wheels throughout the county to provide lunches. And I used to run that program, so I know about it. It's a very good one. For people who are homebound, and whether they're seniors or not in the central county area, Samaritan House provides mobile meals. It's the same thing, hot, nutritious, prepared, tasty meals that are available 5 days a week. And we're going to be expanding that service markedly with food rescue cooperation between our friends at Second Harvest and at the County Office of Sustainability sometime in January. So we're looking to be able to get more of those hot prepared meals out to people. During the pandemic, a lot of dining rooms closed down, whether they were, after school programs for kids or senior dining rooms or just, community distribution sites, including our own. And so we went to a system of individually packaged hot prepared meals, and we can deliver a lot of that. People just need to call Samaritan House in the central county area, and we'll get them hooked up with something. We want people to eat. We want them to eat well and be healthy.
So we had a question come in. It says, I'm a single mom of 6 who just moved to California. How can I help? How can I get help for Thanksgiving and the Christmas holidays? And I guess more broadly, for those households that are in need, what would that sort of very first step be? I mean, you're all there to help, but what would that very first step be to kind of get hooked into the assistance that exists out there?
Well, I would suggest again that they contact the core agency that is in their area, reminding them Samaritan House is, Millbrae through San Carlos and Menlo Park in East Palo Alto, but there are 6 other agencies. We should be your first stop in connecting you with those resources. If we can't get it to you directly, we'll connect you with someone who can. So whether it's food or whatever. Samaritan House does extra holiday food, thanks again to our friends at Second Harvest. This next week and again in December, we'll be giving out holiday food for people who are signed up with us. And so they'll have that extra holiday fixings, that they can have with their families. And as I mentioned, on Thanksgiving Day, we will be distributing hundreds and hundreds of meals, hot, fresh, individually packaged, at Martin Luther King Center in San Mateo. There are other organizations throughout the county that are doing so. So Tracy, you may have some list of that, do you?
We do, in fact, Bart. And if people call us directly or go to our website, shfb.org, we can get you hooked up to something that's probably very near your house and very convenient. So please don't ever hesitate to reach out. As Bart says, we're here to make sure that everyone has the food that they need.
One thing we had to do, Kevin, during COVID, which is still ongoing, and that is many people had to quarantine, whole families at a time, had to quarantine, and suddenly they could not get nutrition. And so Samaritan House was delivering those hot prepared meals, as well as, you know, the pantry foods that they could cook themselves. So there are resources, just call.
So
I just
yeah,
wanted
go
to
ahead,
add that
go
a
ahead.
recent change in CalFresh too that happened over the course of the pandemic was you couldn't use it to buy foods online. And now people who have CalFresh are able to purchase foods from Amazon and Walmart.com and have those delivered to their home as well. That especially helped with people who lived in outlying areas that had transportation challenges.
And Deanna, CalFresh benefits are also based on family size too, right? So someone like our neighbor who called in should probably give your office a call or give our Food Connection staff a call and see if they qualify for CalFresh as well.
Yeah, I love Bart saying, you know, start with the cores because they can really help with so many needs, right? So depending on whatever their income is, whatever their needs are, but certainly we are here, the 1-800-223-8383 number. If somebody is income eligible for CalFresh, they can call that number and we can, if it's an emergency, we can grant it within 48 hours usually. We even have contact delivery now too. So if somebody needs that EBT card, they can't come to our office to pick it up and they need it right away, we can send somebody out to their house to drop it off for them so that they have it.
So we also had a question come in, actually in advance of the program, but it was specific to the higher education populations in the county and food insecurity. We have 3 community colleges here in the district. Notre Dame, Dana Mir, of course, that campus exists. They're going through a little bit of a transition right now. But in terms of efforts focused on say those community college students in particular, are there programs targeting those folks in a positive way? When I say
There are
targeting,
the Spark Point programs are on each of those campuses, at least the community college campuses. I'm aware of them, sponsored through United Way and some others, and I know that many of us cooperate with that. It's part of it, Kevin, is getting food resources to people when they're on campus. But what we also discovered is obviously they're not necessarily there all the time. These are not live-in campuses. So, you know, they may come 2 days a week for classes, for example. They got to eat the rest of the week. So that's where the other resources like Samaritan House or, you know, all of the resources that are supplied through Second Harvest are available to them for the rest of the time.
Yeah, we have distributions at every community college campus as well as a permanent pantry at San Jose State. And so we think that's really important. There's so much insecurity among people who are trying to put themselves through college. And I think, aren't there some changes in CalFresh that are helping college students right now too?
There are. CalFresh rules traditionally make it a little bit harder for college students to get on CalFresh, but there's a lot that's been waived because of the pandemic.
and then the last question I have for you, and it was referenced earlier, but just the amount of food waste and how we deal with this issue. I mean, it really is extraordinary when you dig into this issue. How can we better deal with this? Is it a public education issue? Is it a community infrastructure issue? It's probably a little bit, you know, all of the above. But Bart, do you want to take a stab at that? And you know, what can we do? And what can we as policymakers do better to address this concern?
Well, actually, you put in motion at the state, I think it's at SB 1383. Tracy's going to correct me. I don't read.
1383.
Thank you, 1383. And one of the things it's geared to is not filling up our landfill with the food we need to fill up with people. So the county of San Mateo itself has taken advantage of that and set up a network that is going into place now to work together with all the grocery stores, with all, they call them generators, okay, the food generators, and to be able to take that food and get it out there when it's fresh, when it's really usable to the people who need it in a much more efficient way than it's been done in the past. And the County Office of Sustainability and Second Harvest and Samaritan House, Nuestra Casa's involved in that, and Daly City Partnership, I believe. So we're working on it.
And we're already doing it to some degree. The majority of the food that we provide is donated, and that 50% of produce that we provide is through our network of the California Association of Food Banks that works directly with farmers to take advantage of food that they might not be able to afford to take out of the fields. It's not bad food, but there may be an overage. There's not, a need for it at that point in time. So we're able to get that food at a very, very low per pound price, and we're essentially rescuing it, keeping it from being wasted, getting it to people in need. And then about 15 million pounds of what we provide every year is directly rescued from grocery stores or distributors already, both us rescuing directly and us working with partners like Samaritan House to have them having pickup relationships with their local grocery stores. And 1383 is really going to encourage all those stores that maybe haven't jumped into the game yet to start to get engaged. And so that's going to continue to be an ever important source of food for our community.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to educate me, hopefully educate my constituents, our viewers, on Conversations with Kevin. I want to thank Bart Charlo, CEO of Samaritan House, Tracy Weatherby, Vice President of Strategy and Advocacy for Second Harvest of Silicon Valley, and Deanna Abrahamian, Director of Economic Self-Sufficiency with the San Mateo County Human Services Agency. Thank you all, not only for appearing tonight and taking some time out of your evening, but for the incredible work you do on a daily basis supporting people in this county. I, for one, am deeply grateful, and thank you for taking the time. And we also want to thank those of you who tuned in to watch. This has been Conversations with Kevin.